morning, karibu sana. Another opportunity for us to kickstart your day in style. This is a morning cafe. My name is Freddy Ndimuli. Karibu sana to this show.
All right, and my name is Anne Odida. Thank you so much for staying with us and for choosing us this morning. Of course, as we inform you on everything that you need to know as you kickstart your day.
All right, a State of the Nation coming up in a short while. The big discussion today, of course, we continue with the theme of abductions, police impunity. That is the new angle that story is taking, and we'll be looking at the dailies. Also, being the very first week of back to school, education matters still getting a lot of prominence in the dailies. Plus, there's a lot of expectation that exam results, KCSE 2024, could just be released anytime. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. Later on, we'll be having a very interesting conversation on uterine fibroids.
Yes. Do you know, a lot of women live with it without knowing that they actually have fibroids.
Okay.
And black women are more predisposed to fibroids. So we'll be talking about that later on with our expert, a family doctor.
All right.
Yes.
Remember, it is a Thursday, so Fitness Thursday coming up later on.
Absolutely.
Don't want to miss that. Ulienda gym?
Naumia. Naumwa na miguu.
All right, a quick look at the dailies this morning. Yes, new faces of impunity. That's a big headline on the Standard. On the Taifa Leo, mabingwa wa ukaidi, habari ile ile. Na kuna sura za polisi na wengine ambao na masuala ya naitwaje security. On the Star.
All right, now ex-IG Kome to face trial over police brutality.
Same thing. On the Daily Nation.
Inside Ruto's plan to tame Gachagua.
The Daily Nation has decided to go political today. On the People Daily, revealed why KCSE results have delayed. I told you this is a big discussion. Yes, matters education, kwa nini wamechelewa, and matters business. UAE now Kenya's second top export market on fuel orders. All right, so that's as far as the local dailies are concerned. Let's take a look at what's big across the border in our neighboring countries, and we start off in Uganda. The Daily Monitor.
Highway to hell. Now, Mabira Highway, like the biblical gateway to hell, is preferred by travelers. It is wider, shorter, and quicker to destinations, but it is also the road to perdition, with crashes and fatalities triggered by numerous potholes that pepper the road. All
right, and they just chronicle some of the incidences, at least from 2021. No, I saw back as 2021,
yes.
And how many accidents and how many lives have claimed, those accidents have claimed over the years. In February of 2023, 13 vehicles were involved in accidents. In May of the same year, someone died in a fatal collision. In December of 2023, 20 vehicles were involved in road crashes on that road. So the Daily Monitor has decided to give prominence to this issue of road carnage in one of Uganda's most popular highways. That's the Mabira Highway. In Kenya, I'm sure by the end of this month, we'll be talking a lot about this as well.
All right.
NTSA usually releases some of its reports from
Around
the previous
October.
year,
Yes.
sometime in January. So we'll be looking at that as well. That's a big headline on the front page of the Daily Monitor. Still in Uganda, the New Vision.
All right, now party to organ to discuss 2026 electoral roadmap. That is in page 3 of the New Vision. And Museveni summons NRM SEC members.
Oh, yes, and in preparation for the elections, general elections in Uganda next year. That's why you get to hear a lot about names like Kiza Besigye, Bobby Wine, and now Museveni preparing his party, the NRM. So yes, we've been saying that Uganda has been quiet about its politics. Now you can see the headlines beginning to take shape. They go for their general election in 2026. Meanwhile, Tanzania are going for elections this year. So let's check and see if at all they're talking about politics.
Now,
now
pensheni za wastaafu bado pasua kichwa.
Aha, pasua kichwa. Yani imekuwa challenge mpaka inapasua kichwa. Changamoto ile. Una realize by the way they are not talking about siasa.
Yes.
Siasa bado kunayo kidokezo pale chini, lakini wanasema CUF wamfukuza mbunge kisa CCM. Chama cha wananchi CUF kimemfuta wanachama mbunge wake wa Mtambile Vishwani Pemba, Saif Salim Saif, kwa kile kinachodaiwa kuwa sijajua habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Pale juu kuna masuala zaidi ya siasa. ACT yapendekeza mbinu kuepuka mikopo umiza. Lakini habari kuu pale, pensheni za wastaafu bado pasua kichwa. Masuala mengine zaidi ya vidokezo ambavyo vimepewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti la Mwananchi: matumaini unafuu bei ya mafuta mwaka huu. Fuel prices to actually stabilize in Tanzania this year. That's a hope.
I think we're doing well in Kenya, yeah?
Are we?
We're trying.
Mwendo kasi Mbagala hakijaeleweka. You know that song? There's a song.
Yeah, Mbagala.
Kuna mwendo kasi Mbagala hakijaeleweka bado. Gazeti la Mwananchi, tuangazie The Citizen.
All right, now matters business there, given prominence. Central Bank upbeat on 2025 economic outlook. Now the Bank of Tanzania has projected a positive economic outlook for 2025, with mainland Tanzania and Zanzibar expected to experience growth of around 6 and 6.8% respectively.
All right. Some positive headline coming from Tanzania. You remember when we started this year, they were talking about how much farmers are raking in.
Yes, they're doing well actually, Tanzania.
Now you're seeing the prospects of better fuel prices this year. Now the central bank is saying the economic outlook is looking good.
Jirani is overworking.
Tuhamie Tanzania. They're doing well.
Yes.
How universities are addressing gaps exposed by COVID-19 pandemic is a story there on the top strip, but the main story is on page 4. You can grab yourself a copy of this paper and read. I think this is the only daily that has talked about this story that is going to affect a lot of people even in Kenya down here. Meta moderation overhaul set to redefine social media landscape. It's about Facebook and Instagram, which are owned by Mark Zuckerberg. And he released a statement sometime this week talking about how they're going to do away with that requirement for moderation of content, and that's across the globe. What does it mean for especially areas like Kenya where there's a lot of fake news? If at all they do away with moderation, that could change a lot. That's a story that has been featured on the front page of the news of The Citizen. I don't know why it's not anywhere in our local papers. So these are just some of the dailies, and we'll be back to take a look at our local dailies in depth. Let's now come back and take a look at the weather situation in Kenya, and we start off in Turkana. Yes.
All right, 24 degrees at the moment in Turkana. You are expecting a high of 36.
36. This is actually harsh weather. If you're in Turkana, kunywa maji.
Yes.
Now make sure at least you have some piece of clothing on you just to reduce the risk of dehydration. Do note that yes, highs of 36, but it will be mostly cloudy for the better part of the day.
Yeah.
So where is the heat coming from? And
you know, the weatherman projected that these guys will be experiencing very sunny weather.
Yes.
For January.
This is sunny weather for the, at least towards late evening. That's as far as Turkana is concerned. Let's move to the mountain region and take a look at Meru. 15
degrees Celsius Apple. It's quite cold right now, but kutanyesha?
Yes, baadaye. But it's a sunny morning.
Yes.
Partly cloudy. A bit of drizzling later in the afternoon. Highs of 23 at around midday, but fairly chilled out, chilly weather in Meru. We don't expect too much sun. Let's go to Siaya.
20 degrees at the moment.
But it feels like 24. So it's a bit warmer, and it promises to get even a lot warmer towards the afternoon. Highs of 28 degrees Celsius, but a lot of cloud cover throughout the day. In fact, sunny intervals may not really be that prevalent.
Yeah.
Before we come back to Nairobi, if at all there are any remnants of Kenyans who are still on holiday, tuangalie Mombasa kunakaaje. Saa hii panga kupanda basi na SGR rudi kazini.
Watasema ni wivu.
Hiyo wivu ndio ni kweli tuko nayo. Sisi tuko kazini huko holiday unafanya nini? 26 degrees Celsius as we speak, feels like 29. Promises to get as high as 31 degrees Celsius later in the day. In sunny intervals throughout, a bit of drizzle around noon, but nothing much to worry about. But a bit of cloud cover as well. Yes, still holiday weather. Lakini tunasema book SGR sahi, air ticket iko tayari, basi ile inaitwa Mombasa Raha iko inangojea hapo. Mwembe tayari. Enda panda basi rudi nyumbani. Holiday jamani. Mpaka December.
Hivi nayo itatunyonga.
Tuangalie sisi wenyewe tuko Nairobi kazini na kwingineko. I'm sure sio Nairobi pekee wanafanya kazi. Watu wamerudi kazi everywhere else apart from when you're holiday.
Yeah.
But in Nairobi, this is the situation. 16
degrees and it feels like 16 degrees. We are expecting rains kutoka hapo saa 7.
It really rains. This is just a
showers.
bit of, not even showers, a bit of precipitation. You might not even feel it.
Really?
Because this is actually, if you look at the precipitation level, 2.3.
Oh, yeah.
It's a bit low, but yes, a bit of drizzle later in the afternoon. Yeah. At least the morning hours will be sunny.
Yeah.
With a bit of cloud cover though. So that's a weather situation. And so at least you're informed in as far as what to wear. In Nairobi ni kawaida, vaa kawaida. Tuangalie traffic tuone kama anything is changing. Right. And we start off with the usual trouble spot. That's a Pangani interchange. You can see there's already trouble just before you get to that interchange. And this is where the Mathari Mental Hospital is. So if at all this persists, whatever it is, we do not know, because there's a bit of red up in gate ya Mathari Hospital. Because this is not the usual Pangani interchange trouble. This is something else. If it persists, this traffic it will back up until all stops.
Wanashukisha magari?
Yeah?
Ama wanashukisha watu hapo?
Maybe wanashukisha watu. Hapo utali drift hapo. Jogoo Road is building nicely. You can see patches of red all the way from Manyanja, Buruburu, Makadara, areas around Shauri, Moyo there, and towards town. Haile Selassie Avenue and Landis Road are easing up slowly, meaning that the people traveling probably back to school or mepunguka. Did you see that story of a school somewhere in Nairobi where the girls were locked out
St. Anne's
at night? And that was really unfortunate. You can imagine all this trouble parents are going through just to send your children back, and then unaona watoto watu get.
You know what caught my eye ni alikuwa anajificha. Why?
Anajificha. Anyway. But people are still taking their children back to school, so there's a bit of traffic along Haile Selassie Avenue and Landis Road. That will build up as the day progresses. Other roads are not so bad, and probably we'll be back to take a look at the major tributaries at around hour. So yes, what else do we have for our viewers this morning?
All right, let's take a look at the quote of the day. Most important thing is to enjoy your life, to be happy. It's all that matters.
New faces of impunity. That's a big discussion on the front page of the Standard. They say going rogue in a striking disregard for court summons. Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja and Director of Criminal Investigations Chief Mohammed Amin yesterday, for the second time, failed to appear before court to address chilling cases of mystery abductions, instead choosing to stick to a familiar script for law enforcers. Defiance. The story is on pages 4 and 5, and it mirrors exactly what happened last year when we had around August, September, we had an acting Inspector General of Police. His name was Gilbert Masengeli. And he simply refused to go to court despite summons, despite even a conviction for contempt. Ilipofika wakati huo alienda tu akasema pole, I'm sorry, your story ni vile tu sikuwa jisikia kuja. Na hiyo story kaisha. We're seeing the same things from the IG and DCI. Yeah, but you see, Justice Bahati is quite harsh this time around. I will issue a sentence if you do not come. The thing is, for Masengeli, he was actually sentenced, but nothing happened. Who will arrest him? That's the question. Wow. Which officer will arrest the police IG or the DCI boss? So yes, faces of impunity. That's the front page of the Standard. Yes, Justice Momoya said if the Inspector General of Police Douglas Kanja misses the third hearing date, I will have no option but to cite, convict and sentence him on the spot. Anasema, when I issue orders and the same are not obeyed, it only leads to further contempt. It is unfair for those involved to disregard what is an urgent issue to the public and especially to the families of the victims. Now, whether or not anything will result from this tough talk from the courts, we have to wait and see. Matters education also getting some prominence there on the bottom part of this front page of the Standard. KCSE results out anytime from today as Ruto jets back. I don't know why the connection with Ruto jetting back. Examination results for close to 1 million Form 4 candidates, a cohort whose secondary school journey was marked by major setbacks, are set to be released anytime from today, with NEC Council expected to brief President Ruto. Also, probably they were waiting for the president to come back from his trip to Ghana for the inauguration of the president, so that they can brief him before they release the results. We deserve more than church visits, North Rift tells Ruto. President Ruto begins a 2-day tour of the North Rift on the back of murmurs about lack of development in a region witnessing rising frustration over unmet promises. On the top strip, Matters Education still getting some mention. Parents uproar greets the release of KPSEA results. The story is on page 8. Paying as new taxes kick in. The business page is page 19. International news, 126 killed in deadly Tibet earthquake, and 1 billion shilling Chan prize money up for grabs. That story is on the page 37 of this paper. If we flip the paper and talk about sports, they're focusing on the Gunners, and they talk about misfiring Gunners. Painful lack of striker once again, with an image there of the manager, Mikel Arteta. And they're talking about the 2-0 loss to Newcastle at home in the League Cup semi-final. So that's the Standard today.
All right, and on the Star, ex-IG Comey to face trial over police brutality. Court rules IG can be held personally responsible for actions of officers under him, and that story is on page 4 and 5. This is in regards to the doctor strike last year in April, where the Secretary General, Dav Jetela, was shot. And you know, that time, Japhet Koome said that these doctors were becoming a public nuisance to
It's actually
society.
that statement that got him in trouble.
Yes.
That, it's like his statement may have been misconstrued as a direct order to his junior officers. That, these people are in trouble, go fix them.
Yeah, so that is why ex-IG Koome will be facing trial over that police brutality. And also given prominence there on the Star, the front page, DP Kindiki visits KNH to assess UHC rollout. He was there yesterday with the Health Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Deborah Barasa. And Kindiki said response or testimonials about SHA are well. And you know, they started with the emergency wards to really just see how SHA is working for these people. And Kindiki said that the patients say, imewalipia bill. Yeah, and they're okay.
I saw someone saying that if at all the Deputy President developed any health challenges while touring Kenyatta, he would have to be evacuated to a different private hospital.
Yes, so a lot was happening yesterday there at Kenyatta National Hospital, and this exercise of assessing UHC rollout will be done across the country, of course, by the Deputy President and the Cabinet Secretary for Health. Also on the top strip, how impeached Gachagua could hold sway on Ruto's re-election changes. That is in page 2 of the Star. We have SRC nominees await outcome as MPs meet. The nominees to the Salaries and Remuneration Commission are set to know their outcome next Thursday when MPs meet to, among others, consider President William Ruto's cabinet picks. And these are agriculture, ICT, and trade.
Right.
Yes.
So those are the main stories on the Star this morning. All right. Let's take a look. And up there, have you mentioned this book by Rigathi?
Oh, amazing.
No, it's actually not by Rigathi Gachagua. They talk about
it has been written.
Gachagua could hold sway on Ruto's re-election chances. I think it's been written by the people at the Nairobi Monthly. And edited by my friend Nganga Mbugua there. The story is on page 2.
Politics of betrayal.
Politics of betrayal. And it's about what happened to the former deputy president, his impeachment, and what this means for Kenya's politics going forward. All right. Let's go back and take a look at gazeti hili la Taifa Leo. Habari ni ile ile. Wakuu wa idara ya polisi na wizara ya interior wanasema mabingwa wa ukaidi. Mtanifanya nini? Hiyo ni swali. Mimi nasoma tu, sisemi mimi nasoma tu. Mtanifanya nini? Inspector Generali Kanja kupitia kwa wakili wake asema yuko katika shughuli rasmi zilizomzuia kufika mahakamani kueleza kuhusu utekaji nyara. Wewe jaribu uitwe kotini useme uko katika shughuli zingine rasmi kwingineko, ndio utajua rasmi ni kitu gani. Ukurasa wa pili. Kanja Amin, yule jamaa wa DCI, Murkomen ambaye ni waziri masuala ya interior, inaitwaje?
Security. Is it mambo ya ndani? Mambo
ya ndani
kabisa.
Maafisa wengine wa serikali kupuuza maagizo ya kujiwasilisha kotini. Wameweka picha zao pale. Kuna Douglas Kanja, mkuu wa polisi, Mohamed Amin, mkuu wa DCI, kuna waziri wa usalama Kipchumba Murkomen na mkurugenzi mkuu wa NTSA George Njao. Wengi pengine wangejua huyu nani. Huyu ni wa NTSA. Hawa ndio mabingwa wa ukaidi. Sio mimi nimesema, ni gazeti hili la Taifa Leo. Mimi nasoma tu, pana nikasirikia bure. Vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo hapa chini wanasema nitatua Canada na Greenland. This is a very interesting conversation. The president-elect of the United States now wants Canada to be the 51st state of the US. And he wants to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico into Gulf of America. And he has also said they're going to buy Greenland, the entire area of Greenland.
Lazima yawe sehemu ya Amerika.
Wasiwasi mlolongo, wanne wakibaki mateka. Siku 22 zimepita tangu watekwe nyara. Habari nyingine kwenye ukurasa wa pili. Na masuala ya utekaji nyara bado yanaendelea.
That is Steve Mbisi.
Yeah. Kuna taharuki ndani ya ODM ambaye yazidi. Kuna uwezekano wa chama cha chungwa kufa iwapo Raila atafaulu AUC. Hii ni habari ambayo iko kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Imepewa kipaumbele pale kama kidokezo kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Pale juu, waziri Joho aonya tena wakosoaji. Asema vijana wanatumiwa vibaya na watu wachache wenye nia mbaya. Sijui nimuulize hapa kama hapa vile ameuliza.
Mtafanya nini?
Arsenal nasema Arsenal gunje ya Carabao. Gunners ina kazi ngumu baada ya Newcastle kuilipua nyumbani. Habari kwenye ukurasa wa 20. Mtanifanya nini? I like that. On the Daily Nation, you do have a copy there.
Right. Inside Reuters plan to tame Gachagua. Again, you know, that was in the Star, how impeached Gachagua could hold sway on Reuters' re-election chances. Yes, so that is, impeached DP has accused his former boss of applying divide and rule tactics in the region. Yes, and Kindiki factor there. We have Deputy President Kithure Kindiki has planned a series of meetings with various stakeholders in Mount Kenya to try pacify the region amid growing discontent with the Kenya Kwanza regime. Professor Kindiki has also been tasked with overseeing tea and coffee reforms, a task that was being handled by former DP Gachagua before he was ousted from office. Now, on Wednesday, he met stakeholders on approaches to opening up new exports markets for Kenyan tea.
Inaitwa mwiba wa kujidunga.
Mwiba wa kujidunga ni kujitakia.
No, they created a problem themselves.
Yes.
In fact, one of the panelists yesterday was saying, on the show, saying that, well, the problem within Kenya Kwanza was within Kenya Kwanza. All this political upheaval we are seeing between the president and his former deputy is a Kenya Kwanza issue. It did not come from elsewhere. It is a problem from within. They created it themselves. Now they are running up and down, helter-skelter, trying to contain it. Sijui tuambie nini? Mutafanya nini?
Mtanifanyia nini?
Okay, they also make mention of the police issue there on the top strip. At least they've not ignored that story, which features prominently on the other dailies. Now, top police chiefs face fines and jail over rogue officers' actions. Will they really face? Okay, they face. But will anything happen against them?
Now that's the question.
That's the question, because we've seen this happen. We've seen many convicted of contempt of court, but nothing happened to them. Yes, Gilbert Masengeli is a perfect example. And this is only like 4 or 5 months ago. So what will happen to these two gentlemen?
Ama hiyo ofisi ndio iko na shida.
Inakaa kuna shida. Ukifika pale wanauliza watu mutafanya nini? Mtanifanyia nini?
All right, we also have another one down there. President William Ruto has embarked on a 5-pronged strategy to neutralize his former deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, and regain his winning grip on the vote-rich Mount Kenya region. Now, from his recent rapprochement with its predecessor Uhuru Kenyatta to winning the support of controversial ex-Mungiki leader Maina Njenga, Dr. Ruto is not leaving anything to chance. That story is on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation.
Okay. Matters education have been given prominence on the back page of the Daily Nation today. That story we've been talking about. Outrage as city school principal locks out students over fees. Features on the back page prominently. The decision by the principal of St. Anne's Girls Secondary School in Makadara, Nairobi, to lock out students who reported back to school without school fees has sparked public outrage. And you see, my argument is, if anything would have happened to these children because they were locked out for a night or two, the parents would still be required to pay full fees. Hakuna discount. Your child, you will still have to pay full fees, even if they stay away for a week from school.
And you know, these parents didn't know that their kids were left outside.
If it was not for social media.
Yes.
Very unfortunate. The other story about education. Varsity students in limbo over funding model row. High Court last year declared funding plan discriminatory, and now state agencies are responsible for funding education are embroiled in legal disputes. So what happens to university students going forward if at all there's no funding model to work with? Because now if at all this one has been declared discriminatory, what happens next? Those stories are on the back page of the Daily Nation. And back to the story about St. Anne's. Yes, you're saying that the principal was busy trying to cover her face.
Yes.
But some cameraman managed to capture
the face.
The face there on the back page.
Yeah, and you know the videos we see, we really see her trying to...
Hakuna kujificha.
Hakuna, tutakupata.
Uko kwa gazeti. St. Anne's Girls School Principal Veronica Muli. Now your name, your title, your face are all on the back page of the biggest daily in Kenya.
And human rights activists, that hawajamwacha nyuma. They're demanding...
And for good reason. And for good reason. There cannot be justification for you to lock out any person's child outside the gate at night. They can never be. And let's move on to the People Daily.
All right, now, People Daily revealed why KCSE results have delayed. And you know, the PS for Education was saying that ni sababu kulikuwa na very many candidates last year.
Wow. If you read this story on page 6 of the People Daily, it has a very different kind of explanation. That according to the reporter, they talked to some of the teachers who were involved in marking the exams, and they say that there was a new way, because I remember how papers just came and you had to write your name and index number on top. Now this time round, each paper came with your name and index number already printed on it. And they say that caused a lot of confusion because that bit had to be removed after the exam so that people do not take advantage of that. But then it caused a lot of confusion. So some of the markers say that they ended up awarding the wrong marks or the right marks to the wrong people. That's just according to the story here. I've read the story.
But Fred, how does that make sense? Because according to NEC, they were issuing these pre-printed papers to ensure that there's no cheating, so that that student can be held accountable.
Yes. And the PS said there's been no cases of cheating in these exams. Do you agree? Do you?
Well, no, of course, kulikuwa na during the examination.
So there could be a lot of things happening.
Yes.
But then again, they say, let's wait for the results as early as today. They're keeping an eye on that, and that's a big story there. Yeah,
there's an interesting one down here. Kemri increases cost of DNA tests by 7,000 Kenyan shillings. That's on page 2, and remember, initially it was 20,000. Right now it's 27,000.
I think it's a small amount to pay, if at all you compare that to raising a child that's not yours.
Yes, and Kenya,
18 years.
Actually, DNA is very, very expensive in Kenya and Africa, because they say that building these labs for DNA is very expensive and can cost up to 450,000 Kenyan shillings. Lab F, which is for these DNA tests. So that's why. Impunity. That word features also on the front page of the People Daily, and an image there. Now, this is a story about the former police IG, Japhet Koome. And they say police chiefs in a tight spot over their orders and court summons. Sometimes unaongea tu for... But as a police IG, it will be taken as an order to your juniors. Yes. You could just be making a very political statement, then your juniors take it as an order to them. And their actions, therefore, you will be held liable for that. Watu wa Nairobi, kuna story yenyu pale juu kwenye kurasa wa mbele People Daily, wanasema how Sakaja has buried the city under garbage. Hatuna dustbins.
Sema governor ni mjamo.
Mo Syria.
Governor ni mjamo. All right, that's the People Daily.
Yeah.
And finally, we take a look at business.
All right, and on business, UAE now Kenya's second top export market on fuel orders. Earnings from goods sold to the oil-rich country more than doubled, and Nairobi's status as a regional aviation hub is growing. Yes. And fuel subsidy status audit report due this month in IMF deal. The Auditor General's office is expected to publish a comprehensive audit on Kenya's fuel subsidy status by the end of this month. This is as part of a budgetary support deal the country has with the International Monetary Fund, IMF.
Okay. There's a very interesting story here at the bottom. They say, Karauri, mysterious investors bet on Matatu insurance. Remember, this was the current MP for, is it Kasarani? But now he's a former CEO for SportPesa.
Yeah.
One of the founders and key shareholders of the betting firm SportPesa, Ronald Karauri, has partnered with others to enter the general insurance business, focusing on public service vehicles that have resulted in loss of many insurers. Oh, now that the use of betting on Matatu insurance.
Yeah.
So those are the dailies. Let's take a look at the cartoons as we come to the end of this review. Two themes in the four main cartoons today: matters education, and second, impunity by police bosses. So we have here a school bus. Yes, it's yellow. Tunajua ni bus na imeandikwa schools na haina miguu. Talking about delays in release of the 48 billion shillings for capitation to schools by Treasury. So there's a tortoise that's pulling the bus, so meaning it will be a slow start to the year in terms of education. Pesa hakuna.
Unajua waliambiwa na the CS Treasury, these school managers, that they should not act like this is an emergency.
Yeah,
things will still go on.
Si unafungua tu mlango na watoto wanaingia na wanasoma. Pesa ni nini? Still matters capitation. Now they've used, this is a standard, they've used an hourglass. So Treasury is this big individual here on the upper part, but nothing is trickling down to the other side. That's capitation. Hakuna pesa inateremka.
Wameishika hapo katikati.
Alafu commentator hapa anashangaa kutaendaje. So no money for schools. Yes, lakini watoto wasome na wengine wafungiwe nje ya shule. Watu wana mchezo sana hii Kenya. On the Star, this is a cartoon.
Ignore them. You will just say sorry later and all will be forgiven.
Yes, this is Gilbert Masengeli, the former acting IG of police.
Who ignored them.
He ignored. He was even convicted of contempt of court.
Yeah.
He just came out and said, I'm sorry. And nothing happened to him. So he's advising the current police IG that you can just ignore them. You will just say sorry later and all will be forgiven. So what does that mean for the judiciary? What do your orders mean? Ni makaratasi tu imerushwa hapa. Same story on the Daily Nation. This is Murkomen, the CS for Interior.
Yeah.
He's reading a book titled Ignoring Court Summons. Yes, you can simply ignore court summons and without consequence.
Tanifanyia nini?
So police IG is also looking at the same book.
Yeah.
DCI chief also looking at the same book. This book was written by none other than Gilbert Masengeli. Yeah. So Gilbert Masengeli back in the headlines.
Strays.
Huyo ndio semanga aje ile pH value. Ile you set, he's a standard.
Litmus paper.
Yeah, litmus paper. All right. So these are just some of the discussions. You can see two main discussions. Matters to do with education and the challenges therein, as well as impunity by chiefs of police and security apparatus in this country. We'll be looking at this and a lot more with my panelists after the break. Wilson Sosion, Ishmael Nyaribo, and Alex Mwathi will be in studio, so do stand by for that. Yes, later on, uterine fibroids.
Yes, do you know what uterine fibroids are? So that's what we'll be talking about later and after State of the Nation. Stay with us and interact with us on our social media platforms, TV47 Kenya on Facebook and YouTube, TV47 News KE on X, and _Dida on X.
My X handle is at Fred Indimuli. This is a Morning Cafe.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in?
I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side.
We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers. We dive deep into the stories of triumph.
Sometimes when parenting a child with a special need or whatever disability, family life becomes a bit complicated and you may end up raising the child on your own.
Here, we inspire.
I have a farm which one we showcase with other dyslexic youths and autism how to farm.
Motivate.
It's never easy, but what we do, the best thing is to work with another parent who has an elder child than yours.
And break through the barriers one story at a time. Push your boundaries beyond the limit. Saturdays at 8 p.m.
Jiunge nasi tunapoangazia safari za viongozi bora. Kutoka kwa ushindi mkubwa hadi masomo magumu.
Wakati wetu kwamba wasichana si wa kusoma, ni wa kuolewa, ng'ombe ipatikane, wazazi wakuwe watajiri.
Tunashughulikia yote.
I wish I were a better investor.
My parents taught me how to look for things for myself.
Tazama Mfahamu Kiongozi, ambapo kila kipindi kimejaa maarifa, mikakati na hadithi za kukuza azma yako.
For me to succeed, I have to fight.
Kila Alhamisi saa 1:30.
The transition process for grade 9 learners continues in schools across the country, but the pressure on infrastructure and resources is mounting. Embu County has managed to report a smooth transition of grade 8 learners to junior secondary school under the competence-based curriculum. However, this success comes at a cost. According to the County Director of Education, Kosgei Kipruto, the transition rate stands at 97% across 335 schools.
Grade 9 reported yesterday
And as at today, the reporting is at 97%.
While this is a positive statistic, it is clear that the education system is still grappling with overcrowding. Last year, Phase 1 and 2 saw the completion of 137 classrooms, but the county is still far from meeting its needs. In Kiambu County, at Tigoni School, the situation is no less critical. The Parents Teachers Association has stepped in, collaborating with the national government to build additional classrooms.
We are going ahead with this because there are no even toilets and other things, so we don't want our children to go back to the primary section to go for the toilets or offices or something.
The government has allocated 5 million shillings for the construction of 5 new classrooms, covering 70% of the cost. The remaining 30% will be provided by the parents. This comes as a response to the overwhelming surge in student numbers, yet it barely scratches the surface of the growing demand.
We were given 5 million for 5 classes. And I can say so far what you can see here in our school, we were able within the last 2 to 3 months to construct our classrooms.
Meanwhile, in Bungoma County, the challenges of the CBC system continue to intensify. Kanjui Member of Parliament John Makali recently launched 9 new classrooms at Bungoma DEB Primary School. However, he emphasized the urgent need for cooperation from all stakeholders to address the rising challenges facing CBC.
Any system that is starting up will always have its challenges. But you see the challenges, we must all think together, work together to get solutions to it as leaders.
Cabinet Secretary for Asal betrays a school during an inspection tour of schools destroyed by bandits in West Pokot, announced plans to collaborate with the county government to enhance the safety of students in schools, while calling on parents to send their children back to school.
Tukileta hiyo mabati na tuleta na chakula kwa mashule, watoto watajaa. Ninyi mnajua mimi ni waziri mashinani. Nitasafika hapa nione kama imefanyika ama haijafanyika.
Chichi Josephine, TV 47.
Yes, that story by Chichi Josephine is just one of the strands with regard to education matters that feature on our dailies today. The challenges, back to school week, but quite a number of challenges facing the education sector. Plus, we also continue keeping an eye on the expected release of the KCSE 2024 results, which could happen anytime, even today. So, yes, matters education receiving a lot of prominence this morning. Allow me to introduce my panelists, and yes, you're still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47. This is a State of the Nation with me, Fred Indemuli. This morning, we're privileged to have with us Wilson Sosion, Mwalimu Wilson Sosion, who's a former Secretary General of the Kenya National Union of Teachers, and also a former member of the National Assembly. Happy New Year, Bwana Sosion. Karibu sana.
Yeah, Happy New Year, Fred, and Happy New Year, our viewers, wherever they are in the Republic of Kenya and all over the world.
Karibu. Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo also joins us this morning. Karibu sana. Happy New Year, Wakili.
Happy New Year, Fred. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and Alex Mwathi makes a comeback after a very long time. It's good to see you when Alex Mwathi is a political analyst. Happy New Year, Bwana Mwathi.
Good to see you too, and good morning, viewers. This great morning. Right. Let me just say that I thank God for this new day. You can't take it for granted that we are here today. Thank God for this wonderful, wonderful day.
Yes.
Let's do those things that glorify Him.
Amen. But now, we're talking about wonderful things and Happy New Year, but when it comes to matters education, and I want us to start from there, Bwana Mwathi, quite a number of challenges facing us. And this is across board in the entire education sector. If you look at the back page of the Daily Nation, 2 stories there. Matters education, the big one, varsity students in limbo of a funding model now. So university students across the country face uncertain start to the new academic term due to confusion and delays related to their funding. This has been a discussion that has gone on for over a year now. The university funding model, whether it works, whether or not it is discriminatory. The High Court last year declared the funding plan discriminatory. So it's no longer something that can be used. The other, still on the same page, a very unfortunate story happening in the city, where there's a lot of outrage after a city school principal locked out students over school fees. That's another story. If you look at our cartoons today, two of them that speak to the same issue. The cartoon on the People Daily, which has a school bus being dragged by a tortoise. They talk about delays in release of school capitation. It's the same theme on the cartoon on the Daily Nation today. We've just watched that story about the challenges in transition to grade 9. You look at that whole sector, and it is a key sector which affects a huge chunk of not just the younger generation, but their parents as well, and the job market that follows after that. And one wonders, are we really serious in as far as the future of our children, if at all this is education matters in Kenya?
There's a seer from Mount Kenya that was called Mogo Kebiru. And Mogo Kebiru, very early in the 1800s, supposed to have told his people that I want you to anticipate a season where we'll have butterflies that are coming to our area. And these butterflies are going to come from far off land. And the only thing I would advise you is when these butterflies land, learn everything that they know, because they know more than you. Of course, he was talking about the white man coming, and he was talking about education. That education is a key that equalizes everybody, number one, and allows people to be able to reach their potential. So in a nation, so when the white man came, subdivided Africa and all that, we went to look for our independence. And there are about 4 or 5 items that were key, foundational about that. Illiteracy, health, food security, and I think housing, whatever. But the key one that I want to look at is education, meaning that our forefathers knew that education was key. I know Madam Sosyon would say key to success, but it's really key to an opening of a mind so that you can be able to reach your potential. So when you see people that jokes around with education, they really are not interested in the development of the country. And these are just indicators of people that are more interested in Linda Ng'ombe than Linda Mama. You withdraw Linda Mama so that you can you can hype on Linda Ng'ombe, and this is an indication of that. I'm seated here, Fred, because I went to school in Kama Primary School. I still go to that school, and we haven't done much as an alumni, because the classrooms that I went to over 40 years ago are still, some of them are still standing and in similar condition. The bottom line is, as long as a government does not care about its people's education, doesn't care about its people's health, that nation remains poor. And it is easier to control people who are poor and ill and sick. And I think subconsciously, the government seems to be driven to that. Because the day in those many years when 844 was coming, I was much younger, so I could not comment much. But when people started talking about replacing 844 with this called CBC, 6, 10, 50, 100, I don't know anybody who knows the system now, some of us came out and said, why are you changing the system? Why don't you change the content in the system? Countries have run 7, 6, 3 for the last 300-400 years. They have done invention, they have done development, they have done everything. Why do we want to change it hardly after 20 years? And it seems this was not, it was well thought by those people who wanted it changed for their own, maybe for their own benefit, but not for the benefit of the country. And this, Fred, is an indication that as a country, the future is in limbo. Because if our young people cannot get education, they will not be able to run this country the way it's supposed to be run.
Wakili, anyone watching from outside may think that this is actually not by accident. It could be by design, because it's across board. You look at CBC transition to grade 9. There's been a lot of debate now, the issues of classrooms, the shortage of classrooms, shortage of teachers. You come to KCSE and you read the story on the People Daily about what those who marked the exams are talking about, and people being awarded the wrong marks, and you wonder, really, are we serious? Then you look at the university funding model. This is across board. It's from basic education to all the way to tertiary education. Is it really by accident, or is there an attempt to actually, by design, affect a whole generation through education?
Well, I think, Fred, I don't think anybody by design wants to affect the whole generation, unless it's outsiders, definitely, if they would like to influence. But Kenya is a country with a huge human capital. And we, even from reading history and management and governance, we know where we want to go as a country. I think the major problem is that the people who manage resources of this country sometimes get excited. For example, there are many, as Mwalimu again will elucidate, there are many education models and platforms. For example, we have this, like you say, CBC, there was the 844. Outside these Kenyan systems, as we see them, there is the IGCSE, there is the international IB, International Baccalaureate, there is examination bodies such as the Cambridge, the Edexcel, the Pearson, you know, BTech. There are so many. And I think this is where the experts at the Ministry of Education go wrong, when they simply look at a model and they get excited, they read about it, and then without proper understanding of the country's history, economic capacity, and probably, let's say, political influences, they simply insist as technocrats of saying, we will implement this program. I mean, I think when you look at CBC, what it really means, it is, I compare it like the IB program, which really teaches kids to be independent from the word go, and encourages, you know, children not to see themselves as failures. So if you look at that, then it's okay. The issue of implementing any education model, even the 844, even the one we did, that was
763.
Not 74.
7423, yes.
Yes. So this one was actually a very nice program. But was there funding for it? I think the major problem, Fred, will be, and Sosion, you must help us here because you have been in the real center of the, you know, this mix. The people who sit in Treasury and those who sit in State House are squarely to blame for not releasing funds in accordance with the allocation given by Parliament. You've seen counties complain. Now, education sector now is being crippled because somebody somewhere wants to hold the money and use it for such things like campaigns instead of releasing the money to, you know, facilitate and oil the education sector. So for me, excitement from the technocrats without properly considering whether politically, capacity-wise, and historically we are prepared for a shift and whether we can sustain it, especially considering that everything in the country really goes around politics instead of going around education, instead of things going around health and going around business. Okay. So for me, you should have a special sitting with technocrats from the Ministry of Education, actually.
Yet, Bwana Sosion, that's exactly what the president did. Immediately after he came into office, he formed a team and he called it the Presidential Working Team on Education Reforms. Those were technocrats. So the problems we're encountering right now, does it worry you as an educationist that we're getting it all wrong? Because this is all the way from basic education to university level. Everything seems to be facing a serious challenge in education.
Kenya Kwanza administration and the president in particular is taking very serious measures in recalibrating our education system, because the quality of the education system and its outcomes really is the foundation of the development agenda of the country going into the future. But I want to agree with my fellow panelists that as a country, for the last few years, we have disrupted and messed up our education system unnecessarily. When we migrated from 742 education structure to 844 structure, that was an education structure. But the education system remained the same because it was still an outcome-based curriculum model. That is an education system that emphasizes knowledge acquisition at the basic level, which conforms with international standards. But when we came up with this fancy idea of CBC, God knows where it came from. And teachers raised a lot of professional concerns because the way it was being done, it wasn't professional, It was suspect, and it was foreign influence, and is not going to change much in the country. Now, if I can recap very quickly what from Kibaki administration up to where we are. Kibaki worked on access of education by all. In fact, when we talk of Gen Z, these are beneficiaries of Kibaki policies, and free education for primary and affordable secondary, and accessible university and universities in every county. But during Uhuru administration, we backpedaled by trying to do so much and allowing business flagship and confusion in the education sector, which now needs to be weeded out. And very quickly to what is obtaining at the moment, the most urgent thing was to reconfigure and review the curriculum extensively, which the Presidential Working Party recommended. And one was to rework on the structure again afresh so that it could facilitate access and availability of education to the household. And that is why the comprehensive school model was mooted, so that then PP1 up to grade 9 can still be domiciled in the current primary school, while at the same time working on quality of infrastructure, teacher supply, and funding. And that explains why JS 7, 8, and 9 are receiving capitation of 15,000 per child annually. And if all that money is wired on time, it will do a good job. And let me summarize my opinion.
Because that's also a challenge.
Yes, I'm going to talk about that. The CS Education has communicated and has issued a circular and stated the government policy that capitation, and we should be very proud as a country, and I'm proud as a teacher because we fought in that space for more funding by government, because education that is publicly funded of good quality, that is equitable, is good for the country. We have achieved a lot as a country. And the minister has stated very clearly, 50% of capitation will be released in first term, 30% second term, 20% third term. Now, the challenge is timely disbursements. And so it's the business of treasury. And I've seen John Badi has insisted that by end of the month, all the money for first term shall have been dispersed. And I also dare say it's not going to affect much of procurement and all those other things. Schools can still procure within the law and within the processes. But it is not a good practice to delay. There is need, before schools open in January, money should have been wired to all schools. And the figures are out here very clearly. 4 billion for free primary, 15 billion for JS, and 29 billion for senior secondary. So domiciling JS within the primary sector assist parents to evade the attendant cost of paying fees in case they were admitted to the current existing secondary schools. And therefore there is need to strengthen the quality of teaching at the comprehensive schools by upgrading the infrastructure, deploying adequate teachers. And I dare say Kenya has not trained adequate teachers to cover the new learning areas in our curriculum. And that is a tragedy. But it's something that cannot be fixed overnight. And we need to offer what we can deliver as a country. And then thirdly is the disbursement of money on time. And right now, the country should be grumbling about the big transition from grade 9 to senior secondary. Because then the beauty of CBC, aspect of CBC, which me personally I'm happy about, is the pathways. Okay. And strengthening, allocating more students to take science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That requires a lot of preparation. There have been a lot of arguments across the country that there are empty classrooms. Those classrooms are not empty.
Hold that thought, because it's time for us to take a break.
For all that.
We'll come back to continue this matter of education
after the break. Not talking about politics. That's what I wanted.
We'll come back to continue with
politics.
We are talking about. You're watching Morning Cafe. We started off discussing matters of education and the challenges that portend for this country's CBC transition, delayed KCSE results, all the challenges in marking KCSE, university funding model that has been declared unconstitutional, as well as delayed capitation to schools. We'll continue that discussion after the break. You're watching.
Are you ready to elevate your business game?
As long as you're earning something, there's always that opportunity to save. And you start with where you are.
Kama wewe ni mfanyabiashara, huwezi kaa bure, unajipanga taratibu vile inavyofaa.
Join us each week as we dive into the stories of the world's most driven entrepreneurs.
When you pay attention to detail, you get luxury items.
The Grind, where business meets brilliance. Tune in every Monday at 7:30 p.m. because your business deserves the best.
Hey there friends, welcome to Kids on the Block, where fun and imagination come alive. We dive into magical world filled with exciting adventures and awesome friends.
What position were you in? I was number 2.
What position were you?
Number 1.
He decided to cross the bridge by his house and look for food on the other side. We're going to do half cup of chocolate chips, and the other one, we're going to do half cup of the blueberries.
So, grab your imagination hats and get ready to explore with us. Join us every Saturday at 9 a.m. for new friends, amazing stories, and tons of laughter.
Join us as we explore the journeys of those who defy the odds and break barriers.
Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Cafe on TV 47. I continue looking at the state of the nation with my panelists this morning. We're focusing on education matters, and there's a story that has caused quite some outrage among members of the public, and this is what happened at the St. Anne's Girls Secondary School in Makadara here in Nairobi, where a number of students were locked out of the gate, and videos and pictures were taken at night of the students sitting down, some lying on the ground, trying to catch some sleep at night. And this has caused quite some outrage, and I don't know what my panelists think of this. Bwana Mwathi, people are angry. This is not something they expected. Okay, generally there's a lot of anger, hakuna pesa, and probably parents expected that the school would understand.
Couple of issues comes up. We can get outraged as much as we want, but this is a reflection of a government that cares about Ngombes more than its citizens. So that it doesn't bother Lina Mama, scrap it and introduce Lina Ngombe. Mm-hmm. This is a reflection of that, the output of that, because you see, we were outraged, but school's deadline for coming to school is 4 p.m. So anybody who comes after 4 p.m. is not allowed in school. So Mwalim Sosyon will tell you in majority of schools, and that is normally observed very, very strictly. So these students must have come before 4 p.m., meaning that they would have contacted their parents between 4 and 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock, whichever time that you Kenyans consider as late. They didn't. So a story comes out of that. But the head teacher, from a human point of view, when it got dark, should have actually gotten in the students and held them in until tomorrow morning so that he can send them home. So she's wrong in that. But this issue is that we are easily swayed to pick up that story, to be able to castigate teachers, to castigate everybody else without realizing what's the real issue. The real issue is this, my brother. We have a government that knows that students are opening on 6th of January 2025. These students from day one, and I hear what Mwalim Sosyon is saying, that, oh, you know, the schools can go and borrow, can do whatever. I'm a member of a number of board of management, and I know the struggles you go through with suppliers that we are not able to pay. Last year in one of the schools, we were not able to pay about 5-6 million shillings to our suppliers, which means this year they're not going to supply us unless we pay them. Meaning, a government sits back, a whole cabinet secretary of treasury and his counterpart in education, and say they'll pay by the end of the month. Meaning, you had masters of these schools, between 5th, 6th, and end of the month when you send you money, go and look money from wherever you can. I do not know where that you can. I think the issue is, Fred, we can be drawn into a conversation of what is right in that school and the headmistress and miss the real issue. And the real issue is the seriousness of the government to fund education in this country. Last year, capitation came around June for the year. We had to struggle. That's why we closed the year with debts of suppliers, because the first money came in June. How do you supply money 6 months after the school have opened? And I think the key issue here is, are we serious this about government? We can criticize the CBC, but I'm telling you that's questioning the horse. What do you call this thing of after the horse have left? Now we are with CBC, so let's slow down on whether it's good or bad. But even in implementation of that CBC, are we doing the right things? The answer is no. We can form as many task forces as we want. The president can form 50, 60 task forces. But you know this country, task forces are completely useless. Because what happens is that once the task force creates a document and it's put in the office, nobody does anything about it. The bottom line today, Fred, schools need money. Government have promised capitation. Why can't they send the money today? Why wait until the end of the month? For what? Call a special session of parliament if they need parliament approval to do that. I don't think they do. Call it today in the afternoon and have it done and signed and send the money to schools today. Let's stop pretending. Yes. And reactions of interdicting a teacher and all that, these are side shows. It's like what you'd call propaganda.
And I hear what Amadi is saying, that probably what we saw there is simply a symptom of the larger problem, that this had to be seen for people to probably understand the extent of the problem. But there's an issue of priority here with the administration. When it came to the budget, education is actually the biggest spend, over 650 billion shillings. Yet that is on paper. This money rarely gets to the schools.
Exactly. So yes. Has it been sent to the schools? And this is what we've been saying, that it's not about politics. I mean, it's not about how much the Treasury wants to release. And Treasury is also now interconnected with somebody somewhere or some people somewhere who are playing politics with our children. And I think this should be called out correctly, because that case at St. Anne's School is just one case. And I agree that that is a bad conduct by that principal. There is no way you can keep children, those are minors for information. You cannot keep them out of the gate in the wee hours of the day, of the night. So say whatever reason that the principal has, she has to protect the young children, first and foremost. There are several ways. You can let the children come into the school, create a special space for them to stay until the morning, and then of course ask them to go. But you cannot, what happens if they are attacked? What happens if they are robbed? What happens if they are, some crime happens, and what happens in that case? So, and the school will be liable. You have seen the development of jurisprudence in our courts. The boss of an institution will have to take the blame. So I think she should be warned of that. But in terms of, it is true that teachers strain. How do you expect a school to admit 500, 1,000 students? They've got to eat, dinner, breakfast, lunch, facilities, water, several things have to be done. How are even before you come to paying the teachers and the books, how do you explain that a school should keep children for a day or two if the fees has not been paid? So I think that on that level, the school could have, it's reasonable to ask students to come in and pay fees. And this problem of Treasury not releasing money in time, I can tell you for free, this is purely politics. Somebody wants to hoard the money, wants to keep it for something else.
Yes.
George Aladwa stormed the school.
The issue is that on paper it may look good, and this administration may want to boast that it spends about 22% of its budget on education. But if that money doesn't get to schools or to do the work it does, it is useless.
Yeah, Edimule, I want to implore everyone inside government and outside government and within the boundaries of the Republic of Kenya. If we want to deliver equitable, quality public education, let us not politicize education whatsoever. Let us be objective. And I'm happy Kenya is a country that has education as the most discussed item on daily basis. But on the question of efficiency of delivery of services and communication within the Ministry of Education, I think there is a challenge, because we must communicate very clearly. We must organize the stakeholders, and also disbursement of money, the free education money must be disbursed on time. There is no question about it. That one, there is no debate. Any delay will create inconveniences for the school, and sometimes allegations are when it is dispersed, not all the money is dispersed to schools, and schools are left reeling in debts. Coming to St. Anne, for example, because we are talking about St. Anne, allow me to discuss St. Anne, for example. What could be happening within the school? There could be huge debts of the previous year incurred at the school, running into millions. That's the reality. And St. Anne's is a boarding school. Government doesn't pay any fee for boarding maintenance of any student. It is the parents who are supposed to pay. And if parents don't pay, it is difficult to procure services to serve the students. And the basic education law is also very clear. No child shall be obstructed from attending school because of school fees. And how do you enforce that? Now, this brings a grim challenge to the boarding schools. The day schools will have no problem because the only thing you have to fix is lunch. And I think where we are headed as a country is to do away with boarding schools, if it is a barrier. Why put a child in boarding if you cannot pay for their fee and for their maintenance? And you transfer that challenge to the principal. If I was asked about St. Anne, TSC should not have hurried to serve a quick interdiction. They shouldn't have done that. The procedure is there is a board of management in that school with a chair and with the membership of the Teacher Service Commission, with the membership of the Ministry of Education. They should have convened a board meeting. And from the minute of the board, then the issues arising thereof should have been canvassed in the best interest of the school, in the best interest of management, and in the best interest also of the children. When you interdict the head teacher, and you tell the deputy to act, and the challenges remain the same, how will the school run? In fact, the school is more challenged. So it is good we become reasonable. Let us not be political, emotional, and also take action that we think we are pleasing the public. And that is what TSC has been doing over the years. When they clammed on teachers who are raising questions on the quality of capacity building for CBC, teachers opted to keep quiet and not to comment about CBC. Up to date, they are defending their pay slips. So that at St. Anne, it was wrong for TSC to hurry and interdict the head teacher. In fact, they should have caused more meetings to discuss and to understand the gaps that exist, so that then we deal with the options of if we are allowing boarding schools to operate and to sustain students in boarding, parents will pay, government will not pay. How do you deal with that? But on capitation for tuition and the rest, it must be released on time.
I want us to move from education matters because we have some other huge headlines to talk about.
Maybe just a comment.
Very briefly.
Very briefly. It should be understood by everyone that the government capitation is about 15,000 shillings per student.
For JS?
For secondary school.
For JS, secondary is 22.
Sorry, it's 22. It's gone up to 22, but the actual cost is at least 50 per year. Meaning that the parents have a bigger responsibility even than the government. Okay. In terms of paying for the maintenance of students.
And that is for boarding?
I'm talking about boarding.
Because of the act, because of the law, how do you deal with parents who will dump the children outside the gate and run away because you can't chase children away? So I think it's a whole lot of intermixed,
Definitely serious challenges to do with the education sector, starting from the CBC transition, lack of classrooms, a shortage of teachers, delayed capitation to schools, parents who don't have money to pay for some school services, KCSE and the challenges therein as far as marking, cheating allegations and all that, plus the university funding model, which is no longer applicable because the High Court declared it discriminatory. That is the education sector. I want us to move on to something else, and it also features on the front pages. Now, this is the main discussion. I think on the front page of the Standard, new faces of impunity. It also features on the front page of the Daily Nation at the very top. Now top police chiefs face fines, jail over rogue officers' actions. It is also on the front page of Taifa Leo. Anasema meita nani? Anasema mtatufanyia nini? Anasema sura za ukaidi. Now, it is also one of the stories that we worked on yesterday here at TV47. The IG of police and the DCI chief facing imprisonment. Let's watch that story and then come back and discuss this. Yes, do we have that Taifa Leo? It is also part of what we've been seeing on our cartoons this morning. The fact that Gilbert Masengeli has made a comeback and is being used as a standard of what the new police forces should be doing. So let's watch this story as filed by TV47.
And the new Police Inspector General Douglas Kanja have kicked off their tenure under grave circumstances after ignoring court summons for the second time alongside their DCI counterpart Mohammed Amin.
State officers have an obligation pursuant to their oaths of office, pursuant to the expectations of the Constitution, and also there is a consequence of contempt of court.
With High Court Judge Bahati Mwamuye warning that failure to comply with the court order will lead to severe penal sanctions for contempt of court, including immediate sentencing.
During the recess, I've had opportunity to think about this matter. Ordinarily, when I issue my orders and they're not complied with, it's a very straightforward, very simple way. The only three things I do. The first is I find you in contempt, dispense with mitigation and sentencing, and go straight to sentencing, if it is clear in the face.
IG Kanja and the cohort were supposed to present themselves in court on Wednesday morning in response to the summons regarding the alleged abduction of 6 individuals: Gideon Kibet, his brother Roni Kiplagat, Peter Muteti, Billy Mwangi, Bernard Kavuli, and Steve Kavingo.
This court will not hesitate next week if these persons are not brought before this court.
High Court Judge Bahati Mwamuye has now granted Inspector General Douglas Kanja and DCI boss Mohammed Amin one final opportunity to comply and warned them that failure to appear will see them charged with contempt of court and sentenced immediately.
When the Inspector General of Police is returning before me for hearing, not a mention, for hearing, they'd have had an opportunity. And so that I make it clear, so that when you are giving your responses, there can be no doubt. If the Inspector General of Police misses on that third hearing date, I will go with option 1. I will cite, convict, and sentence on the spot. With respect to the Director, DCI, I will convict and invite him for mitigation and sentencing. There will be no further opportunities beyond this next hearing date.
This comes as family members of those abducted individuals turned up in court demanding answers about the whereabouts of their loved ones. The family of Steve Mbisu revealed their outrage and despair, expressing a complete loss of faith in the courts after being told that the respondents have been granted 15 more days to pursue further investigations into Steve Mbisu's whereabouts.
We are devastated because we are hoping maybe they'll say we come on Friday. He'll be brought to court on Friday, because them giving them a longer date, that means mahali amekwa, they'll still continue keeping him till that date, so we don't know.
Samira Mohammed for TV47 Nairobi.
Yes, that's the situation. And if you look at the cartoon on the page 3 of the Star, it has a caricature of the former acting IG of Police, Gilpan Masengeli, appearing to advise the new IG of Police, Douglas Kanja, that in as far as court summons are concerned, you simply ignore them and you will just say sorry later and all will be forgiven. It's the same cartoon, a similar cartoon, same theme on the, that's a Star, and the same cartoon on page 17 of the Daily Nation, where now we have a caricature of 3 gentlemen. That's the current CS for Interior, Kipchumba Murkomen, IG of Police, Douglas Kanja, and the Chief of the DCI, Mohamed Amin, reading a book titled Ignoring Court Summons, authored by none other than Gilbert Masengeli, the former acting IG of Police. And that appears to be the assumption that nothing will happen. This is a country governed by the rule of law, which, if we reduce it, it could just mean that no one is above the law. Everyone should. This law applies to everyone, but it would appear when it comes to the police bosses, it doesn't really apply, despite the tough-talking judge, Bwana Sosion.
I want to agree with you. I think this is not a debatable issue. The rule of law is not a choice, because the option of defiance of the law is anarchy. And anarchy is not anything that we can contemplate as a country. We've come through moments of anarchy, and none of us is ready to see the country get back to the periods of anarchy. And I will deal with this, comment with this matter in the face of what the judge has said and in the face of what the Constitution envisages. The Constitution of Kenya 2010 gives certain institutions independence, operational independence. One of them is the Police Service Commission, Chapter 15 Constitutional Commission. And they remain accountable to the people of Kenya. That's why I didn't like a situation where we were trying to link with the president and all others. That was a wrong thing. We are not getting it wrong. Who is responsible for this internal security and general enforcement of law and order? It is the Police Service Commission. And the president was very candid when he said the responsibility lies with the IG of police. The president was honest, because what is the role of the IG of police? When the IG of police is telling the public that he doesn't know who are the abductors, and is not telling us what he's doing about this abduction so that we can get facts about them. And thank God, the 6 young Kenyans are alive. And the president said there will be no extrajudicial killing. And the president means it. But now, how the police is operating is very frightening. Because if you don't know the abductors and you defy summons to court, why can the IG appear in court and tell the judge that he doesn't know, if indeed he doesn't know? I think compliance with court orders, it is not a choice for anybody to choose whether to comply with court summons or to choose whether to comply with court orders or to choose which law to comply with and which one not to. Mm-hmm. It is mandatory in our democratic governance. And we are not an imperial state. We are a sovereign state, democratic state. And so when we see such happenings, people who are summoned, they are in Kenya, they are in offices, and they have been summoned to court and they fail to appear. Really, it's a bit frightening. To me, I will think the security of this country is being compromised by the police system. What is so difficult with availing yourself in court? I saw quite a number of things in this country, and let me recount. When we were in Bomas and mayhem was beginning to take root, the police stood without taking any action completely in their uniform. And we were wondering, what is happening? The police are supposed to deal with lawlessness, and it looks like they were promoting lawlessness. And in fact, we survived an inch from slipping into anarchy. And after that, do you know how Mutyambai disappeared? He disappeared and nobody was able to question why did the police fail to do what they ought to have done. Let's come to the Gen Z activities. I was in Parliament, and you know, if you walk to Parliament, that's a protected institution together with the Supreme Court. It's protected by the police, and it's not possible for anybody even to walk in. If you walk to Parliament, you'll see the GSUs and all of them. But that particular day, none was anywhere near. And to me, I read sabotage, and is it that the police leadership in this country is trying to sabotage the security system? What is so difficult with doing what is right within the law, which is mandated with the police?
Where does it leave us?
And most of all, why can't you appear in court if you are summoned?
Yes.
Because we are a country of the rule of law.
Where does this leave us? Because even the cartoons show that there has been precedence. That's why they're using the caricature of a former acting IG of police.
Masengeri, we remember, was convicted and jailed. And the question, remember those days, the cartoon was, who will arrest him? Because the police officers are still under him because he's still the acting IG of police. He ignored. He went to court, apologized, and the matter ended there. At least the court should have fined him maybe $1 million shillings so that he can look from his benefactor, so that at least something happened. He was forgiven. The point they are making, the point these cartoons are making, is that we are a nation that doesn't care about the rule of law. Because if the president can stand and when we question things as a citizen, he calls us stupid, is the lowest that you can go as a nation. The lowest you can go. When your leader that you have elected abuses you for questioning his actions. That's the lowest you can go. In a nation where we can concentrate on this IG of police and him, whether he'll go to court, because he will not go, because the judge will convict him and nothing will happen. I can tell you for free. He'll be forgiven when he go back to say sorry. And most probably this one will not go back to say sorry. He'll show the middle finger. In a country where the Speaker of the Senate, and in the description of I hope former MP will agree with me, in the description of the Constitution, forget about how we de facto it. In the description in the Constitution, the Senate is the higher house. No question about that. The Speaker, the Kenya is debating about children being abducted. 11 in December and 74 over the last 6 months. We don't know where they are. Fortunately, we know where about 4 or 5 that were released this week. The Speaker of the National Assembly calls them naughty children.
The Senate, yes.
And blames the parents for not raising up their children well. Number 2, he says we'll even come with more force, meaning what? We'll abduct more of you and kill more of you. The Speaker of Senate, in public. Number 2, the following day, a member of parliament forgets the responsibility he carries in this country to be able to make laws and to question those who break the law, because they're the ones who are supposed to be calling him and questioning him, why are you doing these kind of things? He says, give me 5 days. This is a man who has the ear of the president, the fake engineer Sudi. And he says, give me that docket of interior for 5 days. Nitoamaliza. He's not arrested. He's not questioned by the so-called NI, what do you call it, this mongrel, or supposed to be commission on whatever, NICC. They don't call him. They don't ask him anything.
National cohesion.
National cohesion. It's a useless organization if you ask me. Then, this guy called Kamket says, don't worry, man. We will rig this thing, and Ruto will be president for the next 24 years. The president will reprimand him. So what you're seeing in the police action, in the senior police action, whether it's an IG or whatever, is a reflection of the rot at the top, because fish rots from the head. Because the president needs to call his teams to order. You can't allow these people to continue talking the way they are talking or kind of jumping and dancing on the graves of our children. These are our children. And a nation will collapse if they continue the way they are continuing.
Okay.
Bottom line.
Yeah, as an officer of the court, are you worried that tough-talking Justice Mwamuye's orders, no one cares about them? As Bwana Mwethi says, nothing will happen to any of these gentlemen.
Yeah, we must commend and actually thank the judiciary for how they come out in such a situation. You know, Fred, nothing has to be, I mean, not everything can be the way, you know, in which people want exactly, but at least the judiciary is coming out to showcase that they are going to stick by the Constitution. They are not going to be influenced by politics or State House or any, you know, state leadership. And that was very good. In fact, I think the judge sort of exceeded the you know, I can say the line by already predicting what he will do on Thursday or 13th?
I think
the next
Friday.
hearing day, yeah. So, because he sort of actually already convicted them, he said, if you don't come, then I will convict you. I think he captured the mood of the Republic of Kenya. He actually really captured how Kenyans feel, and he did very well. So I'm not worried, Fred, that Inspector General of Police will not go to court, because it is true he will be convicted. The acting Inspector General of Police, Masengeli, was convicted. Those convictions are very important because they set a precedent. Another IG will come tomorrow, and he cannot evade being, you know, being convicted. And a conviction
without consequence.
You know, a conviction, Fred, a conviction is a consequence itself. Once you are convicted, if we were living in a better country than this, such a guy cannot actually again be called into office. But the problem we have today, like he said, there's a problem at the head. If you're a teacher, unless your children are, you know, you have a child who is a genius, they cannot go beyond you. Children will jump up to where the teacher is. So all these guys, whatever they are doing, and I like how Sosion has really tried to exonerate somebody and say, oh, the IG, oh, you know, it's them and all that. The truth of the matter, if you look at the body language of the head of state, when people are actually uttering very, very awkward, in fact, utterances bordering on criminality. Look at what happened in Bungoma, where, you know, a member of parliament stands up and literally insults a governor in office, and the head of state is there. In fact, when he stands up, he says, I don't think there's a problem if people want to ask me for something during such a funeral. Instead of saying, hey, leaders, let us tame us. Of course, he cracked a joke and said, these are the kind of people I lead and all that. But he should come out outrightly and transparently tell people that this is the direction I want us to go. The head of state has not totally exonerated himself from these abductions and said, I do not want to. In fact, if he says once that I should not hear anything to do with abductions, there will be nobody abducting people. So I don't want to be misunderstood, but I can imagine the situation the IG is in, because if he appears in court, he is likely to spill beans, and that is likely to affect his job, I can tell you for free, because judges and lawyers there cannot give him a breathing moment. They will want to know exactly when was this guy abducted. And I will tell you, it is possible that the IG himself was sidelined in some of these cases of abductions. Then it would lead to who then is abducting. And you will find a very interesting squad, you know, being, you know, receiving instructions from some quarter, and then you will see that people will be more disgruntled. So I think, yes, let him appear in court. Definitely he has to, because that's the court order. But it is not new to us. It has happened before. In fact, the judgment that the boss will take will be responsible for the sins of their juniors is slightly contradicting another judgment of Justice Mumbi of the High Court, where she had ruled, I think that was 2019, I can check the ruling, where she said that any officer who is misusing a weapon will personally be liable. Both judgments are critical. Why? Because you cannot claim the word, I am in the police force. You have to be liable for how you use your power.
Now that you mentioned it, it's there on the front page of the Star that the ex-IG, Koome, will face trial over police brutalities from a different issue, but still in the same line. Because many people believe that none of these police bosses could ever face any consequence of their action or inaction.
That is very important, Fred, because crime does not get old, for information. I mean, crime could have happened 10 years ago. It can still be revived. That is why you see government takes files of especially politicians and keeps them. And once you show up that you want to contest, and then the government recalls the file and says, so it is, I think, a very important step that when you are in office, you cannot, you know, there is no office in this country that allows you to commit crimes against people, against humanity, against the country. All people in office are actually expected to live above board. I mean, you know what you should do, you know the law. If you do not know, that's why we have legal advisors in all ministries to advise you that this is right to do and this is wrong to do. So it is very, very important that we prosecute such crimes of not only of Koome, but everyone else who has been in office and has actually done a criminal or committed a criminal offense by killing people, by abducting people like this. In fact, it's now setting a precedent that those who are abducting the youth today can be taken to court at a time when they are not at the gate.
Once they leave office. Yes, it is a big headline of the front page of the Standard, new faces of impunity. It is also the main discussion on the Daily Nation, away from the political one, which we're about to look at. Now, top police chiefs face fines, jail over rogue officers. Kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo wanazungumzia sura za ukaidi. It is a conversation that will continue. The process in court is still on. Whether or not there will be consequences for the leadership of the police who have defied court orders, we wait to see. Very briefly before we move to the next.
Yeah, before we move to something else, I think it's good we clear this matter conclusively. And I want to repart on some of the comments. You see, let us not create a blurred image over this particular matter. The images must be clear, with clarity. And trying to politicize it and hang it on the court of the president, this particular abduction is wrong. This is where we miss it. The president has pronounced himself on extrajudicial and other issues. Matters of accountability in governance, and a good lawyer, learned friend is here, is vested in individuals who are holders of offices. It is not a collective thing. And security issues, even omissions by an officer in the police service, it is the IG who is held accountable. And that is why the court, in its wisdom, did not even summon the CS Interior. The court summoned the IG of police. And let me say, for avoidance of doubt, that then this particular matter we should allow the courts to deal with it to its logical conclusion, because the courts have got the powers to prosecute criminal actions against citizens. Okay. Number two, Parliament has powers to oversight any institution and can summon the IG of police and can also summon the CS Interior. We have got oversight institutions. Can we let our institutions work? And if this happens, we'll be able to get to the bottom. Let us not mix issues. And that is why I urge any Kenyan who is commenting in this space of public opinion, let us be objective. Okay. And in a manner that is going to elevate our
on this. Yes. In December, 11 families were crying for their children because they've been abducted by people they don't know. Between June and December, 74 of them. We know a few have already been killed and their bodies collected. This falls straight on the face of the President of the Republic of Kenya. It means that if he can't take charge, we are in trouble as a country. In Homa Bay, I think in Homa Bay, he pronounced himself to these abductions and he said, I will stop them. Is his word worth anything? We can't defend a man who is not cannot be defended. He said, I'll stop them. Public clips are available, Mr. Susion. Him saying he will stop the abduction. On Monday, that was I think on a Thursday, on Monday, 4 boys were abducted in Kitengela. Meaning somebody was showing him also the middle finger that you have no in charge. We are talking about a person who is next to him, Sudi, saying, make me CS. I will kill them in 5 days.
Okay.
He doesn't do anything about it. Number three,
Fred,
the speaker of the national, the speaker of the Senate, says these are not the boys.
Okay.
So Mwadi is actually alluding to very important points, but let me tell you something we have not mentioned there, that in terms of security management of the country, there is a National Security Committee called Council or something like that.
National Security Advisory Council.
Thank you. Now, apart from that, there is what we call multi-agency coordination. That means military, police, AP, KWS, NIS, all this. Fred, no child in this country can be abducted by any arm of government if the other arm does not know. If such happens, then it will be people brought about by some criminal elements or, partnering with some leaders to just arrest Fred or Ishmael because they don't like him. And that will be known immediately by the multi-agency. So nobody should say that actually the head of state can fail to know. In fact, it is more scary if you say that people are being abducted and the head of state does not know. Okay. The level of intelligence in Kenya has been so assisted by the Israeli people and other very, very, technologically intelligent communities that head of state cannot say, I do not know. Sudi cannot say, I do not. Okay. Sudi has not said he doesn't know. He knows, but he wants to handle it different. But Murkomen, the incoming CS for security, cannot say he does not know.
He's actually the CS for interior. He was confirmed. He doesn't need to go through vetting.
Oh, beautiful. Yes. So he cannot say he does not know. So please, let's avoid. I don't think we need to do this, Fred. No one hates the president as an individual or personally. He's a great guy in several ways. But in terms of governance and management of the affairs of the country, there are things we want him to do. And he has to do them.
Okay. Gentlemen, there's an exercise we've been engaging in from the first day we came back, and this is the 6th of this past Monday, is that since this is a new year, we want to look forward into the new year and try to see what this country should be focusing on. Over the past 9 days since we ushered in 2025, the political rhetoric has been very high. We've been talking about issues to do with abductions. We have the challenges in the education system. Yet there are things that probably we as a country should be focusing on going forward. If I may mention, IEBC reconstitution, boundaries review and delimitation. There are pending bills, governance issues. Yet what we are seeing right now is political rhetoric. The government appears more inclined towards fighting the former deputy president, countering dissent through the abductions. The AUC campaigns for Raila Odinga are also taking up quite some chunk. 2027, and whether or not President William Ruto will get re-elected for 24 years or for 5 years is also big discussion. But what really should we be focusing on going forward, Bwana Sosion, as we come to the end of the show?
I think you've talked about very many issues. Kenya Constitution 2010 envisage a constitutional and legal governance of the country. Things that are not done because of omission of the constitutional provision or the law should be corrected. We cannot have a good constitution, then at the same time we fail to implement both the letter and the spirit to the very end. It will be a tragedy. I was looking at, for example, in education, we made a law, Basic Education Act, and Article 64 to 70 provides for establishment of education and standards and quality assurance, which regulates education, which inspects, and is a key instrument. And since 2012, it has not been established because ministers choose which law to follow and which one not to follow. Yeah. But that is on a micro level. If we are to put a microscope in the various ministries and state departments, there are efforts by state officers and government officers to undermine the provisions of the constitution and the law, and they should be held responsible individually. But at the macro level, in terms of government, we talk of IBC, we must have an IBC in place. It is not a choice. There are 2 constituencies that are operating without members of parliament for a long time. And the IBC ought to do one audit of 2022 election and generate a report and prepare and undertake what you call membership voters registration in readiness for 2027. We cannot prepare for 2027 elections in 2026. Others is the delimitation of boundaries. Those things are urgent, and it is the responsibility of Parliament to ensure that all that is concluded. The political ecosystem that we develop, that really is a true democratic governance that respects the rule of the Constitution and the law, is what incubates the general progress of the country, confidence of the people in terms of their rights, and implementation of government policy programs, which the president has a very revolutionary plan to transform the country from agriculture to business to ICT to housing to UHC and all that. It needs a very enabling political ecosystem where there's compliance with the law and the Constitution and citizens are confident about it. So there's a lot of homework to be done.
And a question, Basosio. Do you think that probably this difference of opinion, or what we are seeing on the front page of the Daily Nation, we're talking about the former deputy president and the troubles within Kenya Kwanza right now, don't you think that that is a rather we call a problem that should not have been there, that this is a problem within Kenya Kwanza that was created already?
We were here with you.
We're not talking about the impeachment, that it's a problem that Kenya Kwanza caused for itself, that now it's not able to focus on the issues it should be focusing on because of this.
No. Kenya Kwanza cannot eliminate itself from the existence in Kenya, and it cannot evade challenges that come with its responsibility within Kenya. And those who violate the law, or those, if you are impeached and you are a member of Kenya Kwanza, you will be impeached as an individual. So the consequences of it it really is not a problem. What is important is the unity of the country, the focus of the country, and the delivery of the promise and the delivery of services by the government. That is the most important
Interesting
thing.
You talk about unity.
Because we cannot reduce governance and affairs of the state to selfish, private, personal interest and selfish politics.
Okay.
The biggest state interest matters most, and that is why, if you look at the president, he said very clearly, we want everybody on board so that we can move the country forward. And that is statesmanship.
What should we be
the country comes first.
It's obvious to anybody who does that in the future of this country, because this country will live all of us, that one of the key issues would be governance. The governance you've mentioned, there's an IBC to be done, there's a delimitation as per the Constitution. Instead of people focusing more on their own internal fights, and those fights will always be there. When you have selfish people who are arrogant, those fights will always be there, both sides. And that conversation should be best to get to sycophants so that they can be able to fight each other. But the bottom line, those will always be there. We've been a nation that has been on campaign trail for 60 years now, and we are not going to stop. But in that big scheme, one wishes 2-3 things that are fundamental. One, that this country will continue beyond any of these fellas who are there at any position in government, because they will die soon, all of them. 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, they'll go be gone. This nation will remain there. So we have an IBC. They need to start thinking about how to reconstitute that so that the future can be granted. Number 2, we fought for independence, and our 2 big concerns was education and health. Illiteracy and health. Now, what have we done over 60 years? We've been timing in one position to an extent. 60 years after independence, we have a mongrel of education system in this country, which we can all support and hope that it works for us. So we need to focus on that this year. That what can we do to make sure that this CBC, coupled with the previous one for the next few years before it ends, how can we do that so that it helps our children? So make education free. For basic education must be free. Go to the university. Why reinvent the wheel? give loans to every student, as far as at least school fees is concerned, and claim from them when they get employed. Very simple. Make it equitable, make it possible for every student to get. You don't need task forces to do that. It's an obvious thing for us. For health, for crying out loud, you're charging someone 30,000 shillings a month. 30,000 shillings a month. That's 480,000 shillings a year, or thereabouts, 360,000 shillings a year. For 360,000 shillings a year, this wakili gets a book per cover for 100 million worldwide, globally. So that man can pay for some people in Turkana, some people in Kiambu, some people in Muranga, in the villages, so they can get health care. Now, if that health care is provided, this lawyer will not mind paying 360,000 a year, because it's being utilized. It is not working, and there's no need for defending. So, education, health, IBC. And as we focus on those three things, I want everyone who is especially has a responsibility in this country to just go back and Google Alexander the Great and find out his wishes, his last wishes. Alexander the Great conquered the known world at his time. And when his time for dying came, and there's stories whether he was poisoned or he died of some syphilis or something, he died. Like every one of them is going to die. He said, do three things for me. I want my casket to be carried by the best doctors in this kingdom that I've created, so that people can know a doctor cannot stop your death. Then the next thing, all my properties, the gold, the silver, all this that I've collected from all these nations that I've conquered, let it be poured on the road towards my grave, so that people can know that all my wealth and everything you accumulate will remain here. And thirdly, he said, ensure that my hands are, you put holes on the casket so that my hands are outside, so that everyone can see that I didn't go with anything into my grave. That whatever you do now, whatever you accumulate now is useless. President Ruto, you have a responsibility to guide this nation, You can't hide on the fact that bodies are independent. You can't hide on that. You have a responsibility to guide this country, and you must guide this country so that you can have an election in 2027, and you can have an election in 2032, and going forward by just following the Constitution and getting the ABC in place. Okay?
Yeah, the problem with our country, Fred, is the traction of life is around government and the state. Just what the government is doing and what, that's where everybody's looking at. But I think that private sector should wake up to the call of, liberating citizens and liberating the country, so that there is more investment, so that there is more, more life to people away from William Ruto, away from State House, away from the government. Because a lot of economy, is improved through private sector involvement. So when you talk about now Gachagua, the problem between Ruto now because they fired him, that should be their problem really. And the private sector, I know it is always affected, but the private sector should independently pursue the line of economic and investment development, so that we are able to have something at our hand, so that we are not all, going to the government to ask for arms, to wait for it to pay us, or at least to do something for us to survive. The biggest problem we have today, as you can see, is government officials and those people in power have so much wherewithal that they can actually call on you and they dangle a carrot, and they, if you don't take it, then you are useless. But if the private sector can be strong like the established economies, then they will not mind so much what is happening between Rigathi Gachagua and William Ruto, nor the hyped politics. But again, coming back to what Kenya Kwanza has done, so that they have created all traction into politics, the truth of the matter is everybody now is in campaign mode, and everyone is trying to fight William Ruto without fighting him. Because William Ruto, I think, I've always called him, is like Messi. He is very quick to actually make his moves. Now, he has convinced us that the problem is probably Rigathi Gachagua. And remotely Mount Kenya. So we are now all looking at that, and we shouldn't at all, because so apart from what he is showing us, then what are we doing? What is the rest of the country doing? Do we have a single individual, even if IBC were in place today, do we have a single individual other than this gentleman called Rigathi Gachagua? Is there any gentleman who has created the image that he can actually stand against William Ruto? And we have 2 years to elections. So, and then the issue of the IBC.
Are you saying that we should probably be focusing on that, trying to find a proper alternative?
If you want to save, if you think that William Ruto...
As a priority?
Yes, if you think William Ruto's policies and the way of governance is not helping the country, there is nothing illegal or wrong to actually then position another person to oppose him. But who is that person? As we speak today, and I've said it elsewhere, it is only Rigathi Gachagua who actually has shown the mettle that he can actually stand against William Ruto. Fred Matiang'i showed that when he was in government, but then he was a minister and he was behind another power, you know, that was really encouraging him to move on. But immediately he left office, I think, again, he was scared away and he's nowhere and he has not offered himself. He could be one of the strong option, but then he is not here and he's not offered himself. So the country will continue to discuss about Rigathi Gachagua. He is an impeached gentleman. He has to go through that. You've seen another story coming up from renowned lawyers that, oh, we need to clean the judiciary. The whole intention is to ensure that they have power to control the incoming of Rigathi Gachagua. If Rigathi Gachagua actually comes in, then he can mobilize, you know, like-minded people. They can give a challenge to William Ruto. But if you talk about Kalonzo Musyoka, tremendous honesty, he's a gentleman. I am not sure he can actually muscle people the way Rigathi Gachagua can do. So if private sector and other people, analysts like us, mean well for the country, and if we don't believe that William Ruto is actually taking the country the right way, the right direction, then we must stand behind somebody. We do not have that somebody, Fred, I can tell you today. And there are people who are imagining, oh no, there is still a lot of time, he will come. No, no, no. William Ruto started campaigning in 2013. In 2017, he started one by one stealing each and every friend of Uhuru Kenyatta. And by the time it was 2022, Uhuru was extremely embarrassed that people I thought were sitting with me, and I mean, you mean they have also let me down?
Question, because in the three East African countries, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, it is Tanzania that has general elections this year, then Uganda in 2026, ours comes in 2027. Yet we sound more political than any of them. Should we really be focusing on that?
Yes. No, but you see, Fred, I was only giving you the point that there is almost nothing you can do about this for now, because that is how politicians have created the psyche in the country that, you know, we started politics in 2022 itself. And we're in 2025, and it doesn't appear it will go down. So we will leave another 15 or so, you know, another 3 or 4 election cycles. If the government can release money to the people the way it should release, then nobody will think about Treasury and State House. Okay. But now they keep everything, you know, they release when they want. So that's why I think we will have this, campaigns
I only have
immediately after
seconds,
elections.
and our time is out.
In very progressive democracies, the end of an election is the beginning of preparation of the next election. And systems do that. Our Constitution, Article 38, allows freedom. And
that is what we should be focusing on.
No, not through campaigns.
No, I'm not saying that should be the primary objective. And people getting engaged, and Kenyans are politically active round the clock, which is good in promotion of democracy and progressing our political development. So I don't think there is nothing wrong. Anybody thinking about 2027 and planning for 2027, fine enough, provided you do it within constitutional and legal means.
Thank you
Anybody
so much.
planning about 2032 is a right.
Okay.
Anybody planning about 2037 is a right.
Mwalimu Wilson Sosion, former Secretary General KNUT, asante sana.
Intact within the law and the Constitution.
Thank you so much, Bwana Sosion, former SG KNUT and former MP. Wakili Ishmael Nyaribo and Alex Mwathi, political analyst. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your very well-considered opinions on what we should be focusing on this year. This is 2025. Our elections are not anywhere close. It's at least 2.5 years away. Yes. So, and for the issues we've been talking about, matters education, as well as impunity by the police bosses. A lot to talk about, and these conversations will definitely continue. So thank you so much for your time at TV47. After the break, a conversation about uterine fibroids. My colleague Arno Dida will be directing that conversation. And later on, it is Fitness Thursday. So get ready to get down and dirty. All right. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. Good morning.